There's a kind of pain that doesn't bleed, it doesn't scream, it doesn't leave scars on the skin, but it eats you alive every single day. It's the pain of being invisible, not because people are blind, but because you've trained them to look past you. You didn't start like this. No one nace desejando desaparecer. But slowly, quietly, you began to choose silence over confrontation, agreement over authenticity, smiles over truth. And every time you said yes when you wanted to say no, a part of you disappeared. You thought it was just for the moment, just this once, just until things get better. But the moment became a pattern, the pattern became a habit, and now people don't even ask what you think, because they assume you'll just agree. They don't consider your feelings, because you've convinced them you don't have any that matter. You've become the person who makes everything easier for everyone else, except yourself. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become anything real when all you've done is perform? When every reaction, every response, every word is filtered through the question, will they still like me if I say this? You didn't mean to lie, but you did. You lied every time you pretended you were okay. Every time you laughed when you wanted to cry. Every time you agreed to something that killed your peace. And now you're here, emotionally bankrupt, spiritually exhausted, psychologically lost. You try to remember who you were before you started trying to be liked, but it's blurry, faint, like a dream fading right after you wake up. You're not hated, you're not rejected, you're worse than that. You're tolerated, and the truth is, no one really values what they tolerate. You thought your absence of conflict would buy you peace. It didn't. It brought you loneliness. You thought being agreeable would make you lovable. It didn't. It made you replaceable. Because when you become whoever people need you to be, you stop being someone anyone feels deeply connected to. You're there, but not really. You speak, but no one listens. You exist, but barely. This is how you die without dying. This is how the soul suffocates, not with fire, not with violence, but with silence. Your own silence. You probably pride yourself on being easy to deal with, on not being dramatic, on keeping things calm. But ask yourself this: who's keeping you calm? Who's listening to you? Who's sacrificing for you the way you do for them? And if the answer is no one, what exactly are you doing all this for? You've mistaken self-erasure for maturity. You've called your fear kindness. But underneath all this goodness is a terrified version of you. Someone so scared to be rejected that they'd rather be invisible than be seen and disliked. Someone who'd rather feel useful than feel human. But you're not here to be furniture. You're not here to blend in. You were never meant to be decoration in someone else's life. And yet, here you are, dimming your light so others feel more comfortable in their shadow, shrinking your voice so no one feels challenged, smiling at people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared tomorrow. That's not love. That's not peace. That's quiet suffering disguised as selflessness. The world doesn't reward invisibility, it punishes it. And the longer you live trying to be the person everyone else wants, the further you drift from the person you're meant to become. Jung warned us, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. The more you avoid your truth, the heavier it becomes. The more you pretend, the more you decay inside. And one day, you wake up unable to feel anything, not joy, not anger, not even pain, just numb. But there's something deeper still. A voice you've silenced for years, maybe decades. It's the voice that remembers your real self, the part of you that didn't care about approval, that used to speak with fire, that felt without apology. That voice is still there, but it's weak, malnourished, starving for honesty, for freedom, for room to breathe. You've been feeding everyone else. Now it's time to feed yourself. If something in this video resonated deeply with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here, and if you want more content that speaks directly to your soul, don't forget to subscribe. Because here's the truth, you're not tired because life is hard. You're tired because you're not living it. You're performing it, acting every day, playing the role of the nice one, the calm one, the helpful one. But where's the one who feels, the one who dreams, the one who rages and creates and breaks and rebuilds? He's been locked away, and only you can set him free. And to do that, you'll have to break the cycle. You'll have to stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I need?" You'll have to risk being disliked. You'll have to say no without explanation. You'll have to show up messy, complicated, real. That's not weakness, that's power. Because the moment you stop performing, everything changes. Not instantly, not easily, but truthfully. And maybe, just maybe, the people who truly matter will finally see you. Not the version of you that plays nice, but the real one. The one that was buried beneath all the shoulds and maybes and what-ifs. The one that's been screaming to be heard. You've been conditioned to believe that being kind means being small. That good people don't complain, don't confront, don't take up space. You've worn that lie like a badge of honor, quietly congratulating yourself for being the one who holds it all together, who forgives easily, who makes everything okay, even when nothing is okay for you. But that isn't kindness. That's emotional slavery dressed in spiritual language. Every time you say it's fine when it's not, every time you smile while dying inside, every time you carry someone else's burden without ever being asked if you're even strong enough to hold your own, you chip away at your soul. You've convinced yourself that this is what love looks like, that to be loved, you must be agreeable, that to be respected, you must be unproblematic, that to be accepted, you must never cause waves. But let me ask you this, has this strategy worked? Have the people you've bent over backward for loved you more? Have the ones you sacrificed for shown up when it was your turn to bleed? Or did they just get used to your silence? Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. But masks are supposed to be temporary. They're meant for survival, not for identity. The moment you start believing the mask is who you really are, you begin to rot from within. You lose the ability to express real emotion. You become a puppet, pulled by the strings of approval and validation. Your niceness becomes a performance, and deep down, you know it. That's why you're so tired. You're not tired from life. You're tired from acting every single day. This is where the disease begins, not in the body, but in the psyche. Jung warned us, what we suppress doesn't vanish. It festers. That swallowed anger, it turns into resentment. That fake smile, it hardens into bitterness. That repeated denial of your own needs, it becomes depression. You may not even realize this is happening. It often starts subtly. You stop recognizing your reflection. You feel hollow after social events. You lie awake at night thinking about all the things you wanted to say, but didn't. And when you're finally alone, you don't feel peace. You feel panic. Because when the performance ends, all that's left is the empty stage. This isn't just psychological, it's physical. The body keeps score. You may begin to notice chronic tension, unexplained fatigue, even autoimmune flare-ups. That's not coincidence. That's your body rebelling against the lie you're living. Because you weren't made to be this passive. You weren't designed to agree with everything. You weren't created to disappear. There's a kind of rage in you, not destructive, but sacred. A rage that says, I've had enough. But you've buried it so deep under guilt and shame that you can barely hear it anymore. Society has labeled that anger as ugly, but Jung would say it's the voice of the shadow, the part of you that contains the power you need to become whole. And make no mistake, if you do not claim that power, someone else will. You'll attract people who use your silence as permission. People who only love you as long as you stay quiet, helpful, and easy. The moment you express a need, or set a boundary, or say no, you become a problem. But that's not love. That's control. And every time you shrink to stay in someone's favor, you teach them that their comfort is more valuable than your truth. It's a slow form of death. You may think you're being strong by holding it all in, but real strength is being able to stand in your truth, even when your voice shakes. Real strength is letting someone walk away because you chose honesty over approval. Real strength is knowing that your soul is more important than someone else's temporary comfort. There is a war inside you, between the version of you that wants to be liked and the version that wants to be free. And every day you're choosing one over the other. One is applauded, the other is feared. One keeps you popular, the other makes you powerful. It's not your fault that you learned to survive by pleasing others. Maybe that's how you avoided conflict growing up. Maybe that's how you felt safe. Maybe it worked for a while, but now it's killing you slowly, silently, systematically. And the people around you? They can sense it. Even if they don't say anything, they can feel your disconnection. They notice your forced laugh, your tired eyes, your quiet withdrawal, but most won't ask, because your pain is convenient, because your silence benefits them. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because if you don't reclaim your space, your voice, your truth, no one else will hand it to you. People are too busy surviving their own storms to stop and rescue you from yours. This is the moment where you must become your own sanctuary, your own protector, your own liberator. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires conflict, not necessarily with others, but within. You must face the parts of you that you've denied, suppressed, and feared. You must enter the shadow willingly. Only then can you emerge whole. This isn't about being rude. It's not about abandoning empathy. It's about balance, about being as kind to yourself as you are to everyone else, about no longer sacrificing your sanity for the illusion of harmony, about realizing that sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for the people who need to finally see the real you. Because if they can't love the real you, what exactly have you been holding on to? And that question, that terrifying, liberating question, is what we walk into next. Because the answer holds the key to your freedom. You've spent so much time managing people's impressions of you that you forgot who you were before all the performance began. Think about that. There was once a time, even if brief, when your emotions were unfiltered, your words unedited, your boundaries instinctual. But then the world responded. Maybe someone told you that you were too intense, too loud, too needy, too sensitive. Maybe the punishment for being real was so subtle, a sigh, a silence, a sudden coldness, that you learned to adapt without even realizing it. You learned to anticipate rejection before it even arrived. And little by little, you vanished. Not physically, not publicly, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, you began to go missing. What part of this message felt the most real to you? Drop it in the comments. Let's build a space where truth is welcome. And make sure to subscribe if you're ready for more of this kind of honesty. What people see now is not you. It's a well-crafted echo of what you believe they want. You became agreeable because it felt safer than confrontation. You became low maintenance because asking for more was always met with less. You became the peacekeeper because your nervous system couldn't handle one more explosion. And so you adjusted, you polished, you shrank, and yet despite all your efforts to be liked, you feel lonelier than ever. That's not a coincidence. That's the cost of being a watered-down version of yourself. The world only loves the mask, not the person behind it. Carl Jung warned us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But very few people ever claim that privilege. Why? Because it demands the exact opposite of what we've been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that peace is the absence of conflict. But real peace is the presence of authenticity, and authenticity often triggers conflict. That's the paradox. You want to be loved, but you fear that the real you isn't lovable, so you keep showing up as the edited version. But then, even when someone loves you, you don't trust it. Deep down, you know they don't really know you. They only know the script you've rehearsed. This dissonance eats at your self-worth. It creates a silent panic inside you. You start wondering if anyone will ever love you. Not for your usefulness, not for your reliability, not for your compliance, but for your raw, flawed, beautiful truth. And that is when the numbness starts to creep in. You start losing interest in things you once enjoyed. You stop reaching out. You stop feeling excitement. Not because life is boring, but because life isn't reaching the real you anymore. Everything bounces off the surface because the surface is all you allow people to see. And eventually, you don't just hide from the world, you hide from yourself. But there is a moment, maybe this moment, where something breaks. A crack forms, and through that crack, the truth starts leaking in. You begin to ask, what if the version of me I've been hiding is exactly what someone else needs to see? What if my anger has wisdom? What if my sadness has purpose? What if my truth, however messy or imperfect, is actually my superpower? You see, the most magnetic people in the world are not the ones who avoid conflict. They're the ones who are at peace with themselves, even when others aren't. They're not liked by everyone, but they're respected. They don't bend for every wind because they've built something solid inside. That solidity, that center, comes from reclaiming the parts of themselves they once feared. Carl Jung believed that freedom was not found in suppressing our darkness, but in integrating it. And that includes the part of you that's tired of being nice all the time, the part that's ready to speak, even if your voice trembles, the part that refuses to keep sacrificing your soul for the illusion of harmony. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. It needs more real ones. It needs people who can say no without guilt, people who can walk away without begging, people who can face conflict without losing themselves. People who aren't trying to be liked, they're trying to be aligned, and that alignment, it doesn't come from reading one more self-help book. It comes from doing something terrifying, showing up as you are, and letting the world respond however it wants. Not everyone will like it, some will leave, but the ones who stay, they'll be worth it because they're not staying for the performance. They're staying for you, and suddenly you'll feel it. Something you haven't felt in years. Relief. Not the relief of being accepted, but the relief of no longer betraying yourself. This is the moment the tide begins to turn. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped trying to earn love. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped apologizing for existing. And in doing so, you stopped dying. That's the real shift. That's what freedom tastes like. And it always begins with one radical act. Showing up, unfiltered, unpolished, unafraid. But there's more. Because the real test isn't just showing up once, it's staying present when someone's disappointed, staying strong when they try to guilt you back into the role, staying loyal to yourself when everything in you wants to collapse back into comfort. That's what we'll uncover next. How to hold your ground when the world tries to pull you back into the box you fought so hard to escape. There comes a point when you stop wondering why people don't see you, and you start realizing you've spent your whole life making yourself invisible. It's a strange kind of betrayal, not against them, but against yourself. You look back and recognize the hundreds of times you silenced your own opinions just to keep the room calm. You remember the birthdays you didn't celebrate so others wouldn't feel awkward. You recall the boundaries you never set, the texts you answered even when you were breaking inside, the smiles you forced so no one would ask if you were okay. This isn't kindness. It's self-erasure. And the worst part is that the world rewards this behavior. Temporarily, you get labeled as the easy one, the reliable one, the person who never complains, never causes trouble, never makes things uncomfortable. But deep down, you're dying. Because every time you avoid conflict to keep the peace, what you're actually doing is starting a war inside yourself. Carl Jung warned that what we repress doesn't disappear. It gathers power in the shadow. It becomes resentment. It becomes passive aggression. It becomes emotional numbness. Eventually, the same energy you use to please everyone else becomes the very thing that isolates you from yourself. You become so used to being misunderstood that you stop trying to be understood. You convince yourself that this version of you, the agreeable, polished, quiet version, is just who you are, but it's not. You were not born to be emotionally muted. You were not put here to blend in, to shrink, to apologize for your depth. The fire you suppress doesn't go out, it turns inward. That's where the fatigue comes from. That's why even small decisions feel heavy. That's why you sometimes stare at the ceiling at night, wondering why everything feels so flat. It's because you've built a life that doesn't reflect your soul. And no amount of external approval can compensate for that kind of disconnection. Let's be honest. The idea of being disliked terrifies you. That's the real root, isn't it? You're not afraid of speaking your truth. You're afraid of the fallout. You're afraid that if you stop saying yes, they'll stop coming back. That if you set a boundary, they'll choose someone else. That if you become honest, they'll label you difficult. But let me ask you this. If they only stay because you're convenient, do they actually love you? Or do they love the utility you provide? That's the bitter pill. We keep relationships alive by sacrificing our needs, only to discover that those relationships were never about love. They were about control. You were being tolerated, not cherished. And now that you're starting to wake up, the fear hits harder than ever, because once you see the truth, you can't go back. This is the threshold, the moment where the mask begins to slip, and you face a terrifying choice: continue the performance and preserve the illusion of connection, or shatter it and finally meet yourself. Jung called this the individuation process, the painful, necessary journey of separating who you really are from who the world told you to be. And this isn't some one-time decision. It's 1,000 little rebellions every day. It's saying no to a dinner invitation when your body screams for rest. It's ending a conversation when it starts to twist your gut. It's disappointing people who once benefited from your silence and being okay with it. You won't be celebrated for this, at least not at first. In fact, some people will treat your boundaries like betrayal. They'll say you've changed, that you're selfish now, that you've become cold. But that's not coldness, no, that's clarity. For the first time, you're not negotiating your identity to make others comfortable. And that's terrifying, but it's also sacred, because in the ashes of those lost connections, something begins to bloom. You discover that some people stay, not because you cater to them, but because they see you, the real you, and they don't run, they listen, they adjust. They meet you at your level instead of expecting you to drop down to theirs. And those people, that's your tribe. That's your home. You'll also notice something else. Your energy returns, not all at once, but day by day, as you stop leaking yourself out through fake agreements and false personas. Your body begins to breathe again. You start laughing from your chest instead of your throat. You say what you mean, and it feels like oxygen. You no longer leave conversations feeling drained because you're no longer shrinking to fit. That is the power of alignment, when who you are and how you show up finally match. And when that happens, your presence changes. People feel it. Some pull away, others draw near, but more importantly, you feel it. For the first time in a long time, you begin to recognize yourself in the mirror again. And that's what you've been craving. Not love, not admiration, not applause, but congruence. To look at yourself and feel no shame. To speak and know you meant every word. To be alone and still feel whole. That is freedom. That is peace. That is what Carl Jung meant when he said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because once you do, you become untouchable, not because the world changes, but because you are no longer bargaining for your worth. You are no longer molding yourself to be liked. You are no longer editing your essence to keep a seat at a table that drains you. You are no longer asking for permission to exist, and once you taste that, there's no going back. But how do you sustain this? How do you keep that fire alive when the world constantly pressures you to dim it? There's a quiet kind of courage that doesn't look like fire. It looks like consistency. Not the kind of consistency where you show up for others despite your exhaustion, but the kind where you finally start showing up for yourself. That's where everything shifts. The hardest part of this transformation is not recognizing what's wrong. It's deciding that you're no longer going to live with it, that you're no longer going to keep pretending that exhaustion is noble, that being liked is the same as being loved, that peace means silence. No doubt, real peace comes when you can sit with yourself undisturbed, unmasked, and still feel whole. Carl Jung believed that the individual who integrates their shadow becomes powerful, not because they dominate others, but because they're no longer at war with themselves. And that's the next level of freedom, not just saying no to what hurts you, but standing unapologetically in the light of who you are. Flaws, rage, brilliance, desires, and all. But here's where it gets real. This isn't just about cutting people off. This isn't about becoming distant or hardened. It's about becoming rooted. It's about knowing your core so deeply that no praise can inflate you and no insult can destroy you. That's what people mistake for arrogance. But it's actually self-possession, and it's rare because most people are still waiting for someone else to give them permission to be real. You've waited long enough. The world may not give you that permission. They might even punish you for taking it. But that's exactly why you must. Because the longer you wait, the more your life becomes a reflection of someone else's expectations, not your own truth. And what's the cost of that? Look around. People are burned out, not from working hard, but from constantly wearing masks. They're not tired from effort. They're tired from performance, from playing roles that suffocate their authenticity. From giving and giving, hoping that someday someone will see their value. But here's the twist. You were never supposed to earn your worth. You were only meant to own it. When you do, your energy changes. Your body feels different. Your breath returns. You stop clenching your jaw. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head before speaking. You stop apologizing for things that never required your guilt in the first place. That's how healing shows up. Subtly, then all at once. It's not about becoming a new version of yourself. It's about coming home to the version you buried to survive. And when you arrive there, when you meet that you, everything shifts. Relationships change. Your voice sharpens. Your eyes soften. You begin to attract people who recognize your depth, not just your utility. You stop being drained by small talk and start craving soul talk. You find yourself walking away from anything that dishonors your spirit, not because you're bitter, but because you've finally remembered your worth. This is what it means to stop asking for space and start taking up space. Comment below with one truth you're finally ready to stop hiding from. I read every single message, and if this video felt like a step toward your healing, hit subscribe. The journey continues here. It means you stop making yourself small so others can feel big. You stop giving explanations to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop performing. And in that silence, in that absence of approval, you hear something for the first time. Your own voice. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it doesn't beg. It simply states, I am here, I am whole, I am enough. And from that place, you begin to rebuild. Not a life that looks good on the outside, but one that feels right on the inside. And that's the life that can't be taken from you, because it wasn't given to you by others. It was carved by your pain, shaped by your awakenings, and sealed by your choice to stop hiding. So now the final step isn't to wait for more validation. It's to move, to act, to speak, to love, to leave, to rest, to live. The version of you that was quiet for too long is awake now. And though the path ahead may be lonely at times, it is yours. Walk it, fully, loudly, unapologetically. Because Carl Jung was right, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Thank you for being here, truly. If this message reached something deep in you, it's not by accident. It means you're ready. And if you're still unsure, that's okay too. Healing isn't linear. Awakening is not a finish line. It's a practice, a choice, a daily return to yourself. And you don't have to do it alone. If you're ready to go deeper, to uncover the next truth waiting inside you, the next video is waiting for you on the screen right now. Click it when your soul is ready. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for being brave, and thank you for choosing yourself.